The confrontation felt unreal, like something out of a nightmare. Emma's voice trembled with fury as she accused me, her words cutting through the air like sharp blades. "You hit my kid," she screamed, her eyes wide with disbelief and anger. I stood frozen, feeling the weight of her accusation press down on me. My heart raced, and the room seemed to close in, the walls bearing down with the suffocating tension. "You hit him, and I have the proof," she spat, pulling out her phone, her hands shaking. I glanced at the child, standing behind her, eyes wide with a mix of fear and confusion. What the hell was going on? I had never touched her son, never laid a finger on him. And yet, here we were, standing in the middle of this impossible accusation. I couldn't breathe, the world around me seemed to shift. I stared at Emma, trying to comprehend what had just happened. She kept ranting, her words becoming a blur in my mind. "You're going to pay for this," she added, her tone vengeful. The last thing I wanted was to fight with her, but I couldn't let this slide. I had to find a way to prove I was innocent. The seconds felt like hours as I stood there, trying to process what was happening. It was like a nightmare unfolding, something so absurd that I couldn't find the words to explain. My mind was spinning, grasping for something, anything to hold on to. How could Emma accuse me of something so outrageous? My relationship with her son had always been respectful. I had never even raised my voice at him. I had no idea where this was coming from. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a calculated attack. I watched as she stood there, her hands shaking as she swiped through the video again, the same image flashing on the screen. She seemed so certain, like she had already made up her mind. And then I heard it. "I'm going to show this to everyone," she said, her voice low but cutting. The words hit me like a slap in the face. If Emma went public with this, it would destroy me. The thought of my reputation being torn apart over something I didn't do made my stomach churn. I had to do something to stop it, but what? The security footage was my only hope. But if I couldn't prove my innocence with that, I had no idea how I'd survive this. I felt like a pawn in someone else's game, trapped in a scenario where I was already guilty before I had a chance to speak. I couldn't let Emma take this any further. I had to find a way to fight back. But where was the truth in all of this? The video wasn't helping. The more I looked at it, the more it seemed to work against me. Every frame, every angle made me look guilty. I had never seen the footage before, and all I could think about was how everything could go wrong. The weight of Emma's accusation settled on my shoulders like a ton of bricks, crushing the air out of my lungs. The only thing I could do now was fight back. I wasn't going down like this. I had no idea how I was going to prove my innocence, but I couldn't just stand there and let her ruin my life. I looked around the room for something to help, something that could give me the clarity I desperately needed. Then, I remembered the security footage from the hallway, my last hope. My fingers fumbled with the phone as I quickly searched for the footage. My hands were still trembling, but I pushed through, determined to find the evidence I needed. I could feel Emma's eyes on me, but I didn't dare look up. The minutes ticked by agonizingly slow. When I finally found it, I felt a rush of relief. I had the video, but as it began to play, I saw the same blurry footage that had haunted me in Emma's phone. My heart sank again. Was this all I had to fight with? I couldn't even make out what was happening. I quickly rewound and tried again, staring harder at the screen. This time I saw it. There was a figure in the background, someone I hadn't noticed before. Who was it? And why hadn't Emma mentioned this person? I knew right away that I had to find out who they were, or everything would be lost. I played the video again, my heart hammering in my chest. The footage was clearer now, and as I watched, I realized that something was terribly wrong. The figure in the background was moving in a way that didn't match what I had seen before. It was like they were deliberately trying to avoid being seen, a shadow in the corner. That's when it hit me. I wasn't the only one in the room that night. Someone else was there. Someone who had been hiding in plain sight. If I could find them, I could prove my innocence. But I needed more than just the footage. I needed a plan. I couldn't let this go on any longer. I felt the tension in the air as I scanned the footage again, trying to make sense of what had happened. Every second felt heavier, as if each frame added more weight to my confusion. "This is ridiculous," I muttered to myself. I couldn't believe I was sitting here, staring at a screen, trying to prove my innocence. The accusations had shattered my world, in a way I couldn't even begin to explain. Emma's face, her fury, her certainty that I had done something I hadn't, haunted me. I ran a hand through my hair, feeling the growing panic in my chest. I had to find a way to clear my name, but nothing in the video made sense. It was blurry, distorted, and all I saw was a figure. Me? Or someone else? The questions kept spinning around in my head. Every time I rewound it, the same result, nothing but a shadow, a fleeting moment that couldn't possibly tell the whole story. What had really happened that night? Was I losing my mind, or was someone else involved? The uncertainty gnawed at me, but I couldn't stop until I found the truth. I wasn't going to let Emma tear apart my life without evidence. I paused the video and looked over at Emma, who was standing near the window, her arms folded tightly across her chest. "You don't get it," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "I swear, I didn't hurt him. I don't know why you think I did." Emma turned slowly, her eyes tired but still holding that edge of anger. "You don't know what it's like to be in my shoes," she said, her voice low and heavy with emotion. "I've seen the footage. I don't know what to believe anymore." She sounded so lost. I could see the doubt creeping into her eyes, but it wasn't enough. "Emma, there's something you're missing. It's not what it looks like. You have to trust me." But her gaze flickered back to the phone in her hand, the video playing again, and I could feel her slipping away from me. "I don't know if I can trust anyone right now," she said quietly, turning back to the window. "I just need to know the truth." Her words echoed in the air, leaving me feeling as though the room had grown colder, more distant. I had to find the truth. If not for me, then for her. I couldn't take the silence anymore. The words had to be said. "I didn't do it, Emma," I said, standing up suddenly, the frustration bubbling up. "I know you're upset, but you have to believe me. This video, it's not the whole story. You saw what it wanted you to see, but there's more." Emma didn't respond right away, and I could feel my hands shaking as I tried to compose myself. "What more?" she asked quietly, not turning to face me. "We've been looking at this footage for hours. There's nothing else to find." "No, Emma. There's another angle," I said, my voice gaining strength. "A camera from the hallway. It shows everything. It shows that I wasn't even close to your kid." Her head snapped around at that. For a brief moment, I saw the tiniest flicker of hope in her eyes. But then she closed herself off again. "Why didn't you say anything before?" she demanded, her voice rising in suspicion. "Because I didn't think I'd need to," I shot back. "But now I realize I have to show you the full picture. I swear, you'll see I didn't hurt him. You have to trust me." I could feel the weight of her doubt. I wasn't sure if we could ever go back from this. The hours stretched on as we reviewed every angle of the footage, but nothing came close to showing the clarity we needed. Emma was losing hope, and I could feel her slipping further away from me with each passing minute. "It's no use," she finally said, her voice flat. "We've seen everything there is to see. There's nothing here to prove your innocence." Her words hit me harder than I expected, each syllable a nail in the coffin. I couldn't lose her trust. "I know what I saw, Emma. And I'm telling you, there's more. You're not seeing what I'm seeing. We're missing something." Her face remained stoic, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. She was tired of the fight, tired of trying to make sense of everything. "I just want this to be over," she whispered, staring down at the phone. I stepped closer to her, my voice softening. "Please, let me show you the other footage. Just one more time, okay? I can't do this without you." Finally, Emma sighed and nodded. "All right, one more time," she said, her voice quieter now, almost defeated. We went over the footage again, and this time, something clicked. It wasn't the shadow in the background that caught my attention. It was the sound. There, faint but unmistakable, was the sound of footsteps in the hallway, right before the blurry figure appeared. I froze, rewinding it again. "Listen," I said, pointing at the screen. Emma leaned in, her eyes narrowing in concentration. The footsteps were there, clear as day. "That's not me," I said, almost breathless. "I didn't make that sound. Someone else was there." Emma's eyes widened, the disbelief in her expression slowly shifting to something else. "You're sure?" she asked, her voice softer now. I nodded. "I'm sure. Now we know it wasn't me. But who was it?" The question hung in the air, and I could feel Emma's shift in belief. We were closer than ever to finding the truth, but the mystery was far from over. As I replayed the footage, my heart started to race. The sound of the footsteps was undeniable. It wasn't just a small noise, it was distinct. Someone had been in the hallway the entire time watching. I could feel my chest tighten as I tried to make sense of it. The figure was blurred, but the footsteps were clear. It wasn't me. It wasn't Emma. So who was it? I had no idea who could have been in the house that night, but now we had proof. Emma sat beside me, her face pale, her eyes glued to the screen. "Who is that?" she whispered, her voice shaking. The question echoed in my head. Who? I kept asking myself the same thing. Who could have been in my home, hiding in the shadows? It felt like I was losing control, like I was spiraling further into a mystery I couldn't solve. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to stop until I found the truth. "We need to track them down," I said, my voice strained. "I'm going to find out who was there, even if it takes everything I have." The search for answers took us down a dark path. We began by contacting everyone who had been in the house that night. Family, friends, even the delivery person. But nothing added up. The footsteps were too deliberate, too quiet for someone who wasn't trying to hide. "I don't get it," Emma said, sitting on the couch, her voice laced with frustration. "Why would someone hide in the house? Why not just leave when they saw the kid?" The questions kept mounting, but the answers weren't coming. I kept looking over the footage, feeling like something was right in front of me but just out of reach. "I don't know, Emma," I admitted, my voice hollow. "But this is more than just an accident. Someone had a reason to be there, and we need to figure out why." My hands gripped the edge of the table as I stared at the screen, each second of silence between us growing heavier. I was desperate for any clue, any lead. But the more I searched, the more I realized how much I was starting to lose. The weight of suspicion hung over me like a dark cloud, and with every passing moment, I felt the walls closing in. "We can't stop now," I said. "We have to find them." I felt my mind racing, spinning with possibilities. Could someone have been hiding in my house for the entire night without anyone noticing? The more I thought about it, the more the idea seemed absurd, yet the footage didn't lie. The footsteps, the shadow, it had to mean something. "We're missing something," I said, more to myself than to Emma. "We're not looking at this from the right angle." Emma looked up at me, her face still etched with doubt. "What are you talking about?" she asked. "We've looked at everything. The footage, the list of people, everything. And we're still no closer to figuring this out." I leaned forward, my eyes fixed on the laptop screen. "There's something else in the footage we haven't noticed yet. Something we missed." "I know it." My hands trembled slightly as I rewound the video again, playing it frame by frame. Emma's frustration was palpable, but I couldn't stop. Not now. I had to see something we hadn't before. "It's there, Emma. It's in the details. We just have to find it." The breakthrough came when I saw it. The faint glint of light reflecting off something metal near the doorframe. I froze, replaying the footage. "Look," I said, pointing to the screen. Emma's eyes flicked over, and I saw the change in her expression. "What is that?" she asked, her voice low. It was hard to tell, but the shape looked like a key, or a piece of jewelry perhaps. Something that didn't belong. My heart skipped a beat. It was the first real clue we had. I zoomed in, trying to get a clearer view, but it was only visible for a split second. That's it, I said, my voice a mix of excitement and fear. That's something we can work with. Emma's gaze lingered on the screen, and for the first time I saw a spark of hope in her eyes. What is it though? She asked quietly. Who would leave something like that behind? I didn't know, but I knew it was important. We had to figure out what it was, and who had left it behind. This could be the break we needed, but I also knew we were walking deeper into something dangerous. The object had to mean something. But what? We couldn't figure out what it was from the video alone. I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. We were so close, yet so far. We need to find out who owns it, I said, running a hand through my hair. I don't know how, but it's the only lead we've got. Emma looked at me, her brow furrowed with uncertainty. And how are we supposed to do that? She asked. I didn't have an answer. I didn't even know where to start. But one thing was clear, I couldn't stop now. The mystery was bigger than anything I had imagined. And if I didn't figure it out soon, everything I knew could come crashing down. We'll figure it out, I said, my voice growing more determined. We have to. I could see the same determination in Emma's eyes, though there was still a hint of doubt. All right, she said, her voice firm. But if this leads to something bigger, we have to be ready. I nodded. Whatever we uncovered, we couldn't back out now. The silence was suffocating. Emma's accusation hit me like a punch to the stomach. You don't understand, Emma, I pleaded. I didn't hit your kid. Her hands were shaking as she gripped her phone, the video flashing in front of me. I have proof, she said, her voice growing louder. What more could there be? I forced myself to speak. There's another video. You didn't see everything. She paused, narrowing her eyes. What do you mean? She asked, her voice full of doubt. I had to prove it. I could feel the walls closing in. I'll show you the full footage, I said, my voice trembling but firm. Emma stared at me, suspicion in her eyes. You'd better be right. I had no choice but to show her the truth. My heart raced as I unlocked the hallway camera footage. Here, I said, showing her the video. Emma's gaze never left the screen. The blurry footage revealed something unsettling. A shadowy figure lurking in the corner. Who is that? Emma whispered. My stomach dropped. That's not me, I said. Someone else was there. Emma's eyes flickered with doubt. I had to keep pushing. We need to find out who it is, I urged, my voice filled with urgency. She hesitated but nodded. There was no turning back now. The figure in the footage wasn't clear, but it was there. It wasn't just the lighting. Someone had been hiding in the corner. This is proof, I said, my voice shaky. They were there that night, not me. Emma's face twisted in confusion. Who is that? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. My pulse quickened. I didn't have answers, but I knew one thing. The truth was hidden somewhere in that figure. We need to find out, I repeated. Emma backed away, still unsure. I could feel the fear in the air. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about finding the truth. Who is that? Emma asked again, her voice trembling. I had no answers. I was just as lost as she was. We need to find out, I said, my voice urgent. Emma stepped back, eyes wide with disbelief. This doesn't make sense, she muttered. Why is someone else in the house? She looked at me as if I might have answers, but I didn't. We have to find out who they are before it's too late, I added. Emma's expression softened, but only slightly. If you're wrong, she trailed off, leaving the threat unspoken. I couldn't back down now. I'm not wrong, I said, my voice steady. We'll find out who it is together. We need to figure out who that is, I said, my voice becoming more insistent. Emma's face softened for a moment, but then her doubt returned. What if you're lying? She asked. Her words stung, but I had to stay focused. I'm not lying, I said, more firmly now. We'll find out the truth. Emma sighed, her face conflicted. After a long pause, she nodded. Okay, she whispered. But if you're wrong, everything changes. I felt a wave of fear wash over me. But I wasn't wrong. We were going to find out the truth, no matter the cost. The next few hours felt like a blur. We scoured through every bit of the footage, hoping to find a clue, anything that could point to the identity of the figure. But the more we looked, the more frustrated I became. I couldn't focus. Emma sat silently, occasionally glancing at me with a mix of skepticism and guilt. "This isn't making any sense," she finally said, her voice strained. "If there was someone else in the house, why didn't we hear them? Why didn't the cameras catch more?" I shook my head, unable to provide an answer. The footage was only a fragment of the night's events. We needed more, but we had no idea where to look. "We need to keep digging," I said, my tone desperate. But Emma seemed to have lost her resolve. "I just don't understand," she murmured, clearly defeated. I felt the sting of her doubt. Every second we wasted brought us closer to disaster. If I couldn't prove my innocence, everything was over. "We're not done yet," I said, the words coming out sharper than I intended. I wasn't going to give up. Hours had passed, and our search had yielded no answers. I was beginning to lose hope when Emma suddenly spoke. "What if we missed something?" she suggested, her voice hesitant. "What do you mean?" I asked, looking up from the screen. "The footage is so fragmented, maybe we're focusing on the wrong things." She was right. I had been so focused on the blurry figure in the background that I'd failed to consider other possibilities. Maybe the key to unraveling this wasn't in the footage itself, but in the spaces between. "You're right," I said, feeling a flicker of hope. "Let's look at everything again, but this time differently." I felt the adrenaline surge through me as I started re-examining the footage with a fresh perspective. Maybe this would lead us to the truth. Suddenly, something caught my eye. It wasn't the shadowy figure, but a movement in the background, a flicker of light near the doorframe. I froze, rewinding the footage. "Look at this," I said, pointing to the screen. Emma leaned in, her expression shifting from confusion to realization. The light source was coming from the hallway lamp, and for a split second I saw the outline of someone standing at the door. This time it was clearer. "That's not me," I whispered, the words barely audible. Someone else was in the hallway, watching. Emma's eyes widened, and for the first time she seemed to believe me. "Who is that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I shook my head, the weight of the discovery pressing down on me. "I don't know, but we need to find out." I felt a mix of dread and hope, the sense that I was on the verge of something big. "We've got to find this person," I said, my voice urgent. "But how?" "We don't even know who they are," Emma responded, her voice filled with frustration. I ran my hand through my hair, my mind racing. "We need to track down everyone who was in the house that night. Anyone who could have been there." Emma nodded, but I could see the doubt still lingering in her eyes. "And if we don't find them?" she asked, her voice quieter now. I didn't have an answer. The pressure was mounting. If I couldn't figure this out, I would lose everything. "We can't afford to fail," I said firmly. "We're not giving up." As the night wore on, we compiled a list of everyone who could have been in the house. Friends, family, even delivery people. But none of the names seemed to fit the mysterious figure we'd seen. The tension in the room was suffocating. Every minute that passed felt like a lifetime. "What if we never find them?" Emma asked, her voice tinged with fear. I didn't know how to answer. The sense of helplessness threatened to consume me, but I couldn't give in. I stood up, pacing again. "We'll find them," I said, more to myself than to her. "We have to." Just then my phone buzzed. A new notification. A message. My heart raced as I looked at the screen. It was from an unknown number. I know what happened that night. My hands shook as I opened the message, hoping that it was the break I needed. The discovery of the object in the footage was the breakthrough we had been waiting for. It wasn't much, just a small piece of metal, but it was enough to ignite something inside me. I couldn't stop thinking about it. "This is it," I whispered to myself, staring at the screen. "This is what we've been missing." Emma was beside me, her eyes still fixed on the footage. "But what is it?" she asked, her voice low and hesitant. "I don't know," I said, shaking my head, "but it doesn't belong to anyone in the house, that much is clear." The more I thought about it, the more the idea unsettled me. Someone had been in my house, someone who wasn't supposed to be there. And they had left something behind, something that could be traced. "We need to figure out who it belongs to," I said, determination creeping into my voice. "And fast." Emma nodded, her face grim. "But how do we even begin to find that out?" I swallowed hard. "We start by looking at every clue we can, every lead. There's no turning back now." We spent hours digging into everything we could think of. I started by making calls, contacting friends, and asking around about any unusual occurrences that could explain the object. But no one had any answers. I felt a sense of growing dread. What if we're chasing shadows? Emma said, her voice tinged with doubt. What if this whole thing is just a huge mistake? I looked at her, feeling the same fear creeping up inside me. But I couldn't back down. "We've come too far to stop now," I said firmly. "We have to keep pushing." The footage, the footsteps, the metal object, they were all pieces of the puzzle. And if I stopped now, I might never get the answers I needed. "We'll keep looking," I added, though my voice was less certain than before. Emma didn't say anything, but I saw the hesitation in her eyes. She was just as scared as I was. But we couldn't stop. We had to find out who was behind all of this. It was the only way to clear my name. Just as we were about to give up for the night, I received a message. It was a strange anonymous text. "I know who was in your house." My hands froze as I stared at the phone screen. I didn't recognize the number, and there was no way to tell who had sent it. The message was chilling. "What does this mean?" Emma asked, leaning over to look at the phone. "Who is this?" I didn't know, but my heart raced. This was the lead I had been waiting for, but it also felt like we were being drawn deeper into a trap. "We need to meet them," I said, my voice steady despite the fear rising in my chest. Emma looked at me, her face filled with uncertainty. "Are you sure? This could be a setup?" I hesitated. She was right. It could be anyone. Someone trying to throw us off track, or someone who knew more than we did. But we had no choice. "We don't have a choice," I said, swallowing hard. "If this person knows something, we have to hear them out." Emma nodded slowly, though I could see the hesitation in her eyes. We were stepping into the unknown, and I wasn't sure if we were ready for whatever lay ahead. The decision to meet the anonymous sender felt like a gamble, but we couldn't ignore it. This might be the only chance we had to uncover the truth. The next day, we arranged to meet at a public park, a neutral location, just in case things went sideways. I was on edge, my mind racing with every possible scenario. "Do you think this person is involved with what happened?" Emma asked, walking beside me, her face tense. "I don't know," I replied, my voice strained. "But they know something, and that's all that matters right now." We arrived at the park, our nerves running high. I looked around, searching for any sign of the person who had contacted me. My heart was pounding, and every footstep seemed to echo in the silence. I felt like we were walking into a trap, but I had no other option. "Let's just get this over with," I muttered. Emma nodded, though I could see the doubt in her eyes. We were both in uncharted territory now, and I wasn't sure who we could trust. We waited for what felt like an eternity. My eyes darted to every figure that passed, every person who lingered, but no one seemed to be watching us. I felt like we were being hunted, not the other way around. Finally, I saw a man approach us from a distance. He was wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, his face hidden in shadows. I couldn't make out his features, but something about him seemed off. "Are you the one who texted me?" I asked, my voice tight. The man nodded, his movements deliberate and cautious. "I know what happened," he said, his voice low. "I know who did this." I felt a chill run down my spine. My heart was racing, my palms clammy with sweat. This was the moment we'd been waiting for, the moment that could change everything. But as the man spoke, his words didn't bring relief. They only raised more questions. "Who are you?" Emma asked, her voice shaky. "And how do you know all of this?" The man hesitated for a moment before answering. "I'm the one who saw it happen." The man's words hung in the air, thick with tension. "I'm the one who saw it happen," he repeated, his voice low and cautious. Emma and I exchanged glances, unsure of whether to believe him. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to steady my shaking hands. The man shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting around as if making sure no one was watching. "I saw who was in your house that night. I saw what happened to the kid." My heart skipped a beat. He knew. He knew more than we did. "Who?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The man hesitated for a moment before replying. "It was someone you know, someone close." My stomach dropped as I tried to process his words. Could it be? Could someone I trusted really have been involved in all of this? "Who?" I asked again, the word coming out more urgently this time. The man leaned in, his face serious. "It was your sister-in-law," he said, his words like a punch to the gut. "No. That's impossible," I whispered, my mind reeling. Emma looked equally stunned, her mouth slightly agape. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice trembling. The man nodded slowly. "I saw her. She was there that night. I didn't know who she was at first, but when I saw her face in the video, I realized it was her." The words hit me like a tidal wave, crashing over everything I thought I knew. "Why would she do this?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "What does she have to gain?" The man shook his head. "I don't know the why, but I know what I saw." His words were blunt, but they carried weight. I felt the ground shift beneath me, the world suddenly turning upside down. The person I had trusted most had betrayed me in the worst possible way. "We have to confront her," I said, my voice filled with a new resolve. Now. We didn't waste any time. We left the park immediately, my heart pounding in my chest with each step. Emma walked beside me, her eyes distant and unfocused. "How could she?" she kept murmuring, her voice broken. I didn't have an answer. My mind was racing, replaying every interaction I'd had with my sister-in-law, trying to figure out when things had gone wrong. "We'll get the truth from her," I said, my voice firm, though the uncertainty gnawed at me. We arrived at her house, and I could already feel the tension building between us. The door was ajar, and I hesitated for a moment before stepping inside. "Emma, are you sure about this?" I asked, my voice filled with doubt. "We have to," she replied, her tone resolute. As we walked through the quiet, empty house, I could feel the weight of what was about to happen. We were on the verge of everything changing. We were going to face the truth. The moment we stepped inside, I could feel the change in the air. The house was too quiet. Emma's sister, once so confident and controlling, was nowhere to be found. "She's here," I said, more to myself than to Emma. "I can feel it." We walked deeper into the house, calling her name, but there was no answer. The silence was suffocating. Finally, we found her in the kitchen, standing by the counter, her back turned to us. She seemed to be frozen in place as if waiting for us. "We know," I said, my voice calm but firm. "We know it was you." Emma's sister stiffened, her hands trembling as she turned around. Her eyes were wide, and for the first time I saw the fear in her face. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice shaky. But I could see it, the guilt in her eyes. "You betrayed us," Emma said, her voice full of hurt and disbelief. "Why?" The silence between us was deafening as Emma's sister finally turned to face us. Her expression was a mixture of guilt and defiance. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I didn't want to hurt anyone, but I didn't know what else to do." "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger and confusion. "Why did you do it?" Emma's sister swallowed hard, her gaze shifting to the floor. "It wasn't supposed to go like this. I just needed to make you look bad. to cover up something I did. Her words were like a slap in the face. I'm sorry, okay? But it was never meant to hurt anyone the way it did. The weight of her confession settled on us, and I could barely process it. You've ruined everything, I said, my voice broken. You could have stopped all of this, but now it's too late.